Hello and welcome to this special Wrestle Carnival, Carnival of Honor preview show. I'm joined by Dave Bradshaw again. Dave, brilliant to have you back on the show. How are you doing?
Good. I'm excited. After what happened at Curtain Call, I think Wrestle Carnival got off to the best possible start, really, and to the way we're following this up with a show that's in collaboration with Ring of Honor, I think is a really, really exciting second step. I'm ready to get going. It's gonna be great.
Yeah. So the first show, Curtain Call, as you said there, it set the scene, it set the pace for what we're about to see on Sunday, the 12th of September, at the Portland Centre in Nottingham. But it's almost as if they've tweaked it up to 11. Dave, this got an extra match. It's a really stacked card. Got a Pure Rules match to main event. Give us your kind of thoughts, your expectation going into it. Any particular matches that are standing out to you as being kind of ones to look out for?
Well, I mean, it's hard to look past Doug Williams, right? Doug Williams, yeah, man. To see Doug coming back is just something else, right? To see him coming back from retirement after we thought we would never see him in a wrestling ring again. I know a lot of people had a chance to rethink, what they're doing with themselves during the pandemic, and Doug was no exception. So he's back, which in itself is a huge deal. But for him to be against Dean Allmark, who is one of the absolute best wrestlers in the country. Yeah. And under a ring of like ROH Pure Rules is it's mind blowing. It's actually mind blowing to think about that match. So to have that ready to go is just, I mean, no disrespect to anything else on the card, but if that was the only thing on the card, I would pay money for it. You know what I mean? So that on its own is going to be spectacular. But as you say, top to bottom, 8 matches, it's going to be incredible.
Well, let's get stuck into it because we do have a lot of matches to cover. We'll give you our brief thoughts as we kind of look ahead to Sunday the 12th at the Portland Centre Carnival of Honor. And the first match, let's talk about this one here. It's a 4 corners match. 4 corner survival match. Terry Izzet and Joe, the mystery fan from the first show, versus BDSM. That's Charles Crowley, of course, and Clementine Lion Kid and Chantel Jordan versus Brady Phillips and Ivy. So 4 quite interesting teams there. Some interesting dynamics, especially when you look at Terry Izzet, for example. He did that very, very heated backstage promo, backstage interview with myself after the first show, after he got pinned in the gauntlet match against the mystery fan Joe, and now he's teaming with Joe. So some interesting dynamics going on within the 4 teams, and possibly, like I say, within that team especially considering how heated Terry was after his match.
Yeah, Terry Izzet, I find a puzzle because he's one of those guys, and I think I said this on commentary, like during Curtain Call, who's was always sort of threatening to jump to the next level, right, and to really push himself up to the upper echelons of British wrestling. He was just about getting there prior to the pandemic, and then obviously everything paused for best part of 18 months. But at Curtain Call, I know, speaking to him beforehand, he's a very personable guy, is Terry, and I spoke to him in the locker room beforehand, and he was seeing that Carnival gauntlet match as very much an opportunity for him to really make a statement that, right, this is a new chapter for British wrestling, it's a new chapter for Terry Izzet, and it's going to be a successful one. And then, of course, it's kind of humiliating. I mean, there's no other way to put it. What happened to him is he got beaten by someone who came in through the crowd. Now, I know there's some speculation about whether the guy is a fan or whether he was possibly someone who is a trained wrestler under a mask. I'm not going to indulge in conspiracy theories there, but
one thing we know for sure is he's a big John Cena fan by the looks of it.
He is. And he does have very
good John Cena moves there.
Big biceps as well, doesn't he? He's got the guns. But in all seriousness, it's not what Terry Izzet wanted from his first day back in the office, was it? No. And for someone who I think had staked a lot on that occasion being a success, I'm slightly concerned what it might have done to his sort of psyche, what it's going to do to his confidence, Terry Izzet, going forward. And I don't know what it means for him to be teaming with the guy who was at the center of that. On the very next show, how he processes that, I think, is going to be central to whether this team can really hold their own in this match.
Yeah, absolutely. Another interesting dynamic within this match is also you've got Charles Crowley and Lion Kid. And of course, during that Carnival Gauntlet match back in August, Charles Crowley not only pinned Lion Kid, but he unmasked Lion Kid and paraded it around the ring. And of course, Lion Kid had to be helped out of the ring. So a bit of a sad occasion there, but we've got Lion Kid coming back for his revenge, teaming with Chantal Jordan. Of course, you got Clementine teaming with Charles Crowley. So another interesting dynamic there, and Lion Kid looking for a little bit of comeuppance, a little bit of revenge against Crowley.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a nice way to put. I don't like Charles Crowley. No. I really don't like him. I think I said last time, I was with you before Curtain Call, and I hadn't commentated on him before, but I said there's a certain like sinister quality to Charles Crowley. There's kind of a darkness in there, and I think we saw that in pretty ugly ways at Curtain Call, where he came out here saying that he's going to end up owning this carnival and all that kind of very self-indulgent stuff. Making it was all about him and all about, and then the disrespect is utterly disrespectful to an athlete who's been in British wrestling, working his socks off for many years more than Charles Crowley has in Lion Kid, to then rip his mask off, which, as you know, is pretty much the most disrespectful thing you can do to a masked wrestler. I thought it was pretty beyond the pale, and I don't think it spoke very well to Charles Crowley's integrity. So wasn't impressed, and I don't think many fans in Nottingham were. So we'll see. We'll see if Lion Kid can get some revenge, because it would be revenge that would be well warranted. I think he's got a good partner to do it, by the way. Chantal Jordan, I think, was very impressive
100%.
When she appeared at short notice at Curtain Call as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if they won this, Lion Kid and Chantal Jordan, because no one is more motivated to get a victory here in this match than Lion Kid. And he's got a very well chosen partner to do it.
Yeah, and finally, let's not forget Brady Phillips and Ivy. Brady, of course, co-main evented Curtain Call last month. Ivy, one of the best up-and-coming female wrestlers on the scene. So another team that, kind of flying under the radar slightly amongst the teams that we've already discussed, but could come out on the winning end. Yeah,
Brady Phillips was, I know he lost our main event at Curtain Call, but,
he was fantastic, wasn't he?
What an athlete. He's another one who I'd commentated on a couple of times before the pandemic, and he's one of those guys who you sort of thought, yeah, he could be in the next wave of talent that's really going to do big things in British wrestling. And even in defeat against Charlie Sterling at Curtain Call, I think he demonstrated that again. I really think that in terms of pure athletic ability, it's very hard to think of anyone who matches Brady Phillips, and I think he's gonna go a long way. Ivy had a very interesting match, I thought, in that women's four-way match for the Catch Pro Wrestling title, in that she sort of tried to form an alliance in which she sort of positioned herself as the junior partner with Lizzie Evo, right? And then it all sort of, and then she turned against Lizzie, and it didn't really work out for her, did it? So if I was Brady Phillips, I'd be a little bit concerned about my choice of partner, because she's already shown in just one Wrestle Carnival event that she's not necessarily the most loyal or trustworthy of partners. So I would be looking over my shoulder if I was Brady Phillips.
Lots of interesting dynamics there, and this is going to be a fascinating match. But let's have a look at another match that I'm particularly fascinated about. Two hometown boys, Will Cruz and Kyle Kingsley. So two big guys, two big, rough, tough guys. We saw Will Cruz at Curtain Call. He did a bit of a run-in. I think that was after the Gauntlet match, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But a hell of an athlete, big guy, champion for various promotions across the UK. Kyle Kingsley and Will Cruz are no strangers to one another, have faced each other on various independents over the years. But what can you tell me about these two? What do you know about these two, and what sort of match are we looking to get?
Well, look, Will Cruz was obviously trying to make a point, right, at Curtain Call. He decided,
he definitely made a statement, didn't he?
Yeah, he wasn't booked on the card, and he tried to come in and I don't know. I'm guessing he teamed with Blake, obviously, and they were the two of them, these two big powerhouses, trying to prove what big tough guys they are. It's a bit like Crowley. I sort of thought, like, really, you're going to come and beat up a guy who, as far as we're aware, is a fan who just came out of the crowd and has already just wrestled a match. and then you're gonna attack some of our ringside crew. I mean, I just thought, like, how low? Like, yeah, I'm sure Will Cruz is dangerous, no doubt about it. Massive guy, very talented, and ruthless, absolutely ruthless. But if that's the way he thinks he's going to endear himself to Wrestle Carnival management by storming in here and beating up some of our staff, as well as someone who, as far as we know, as I say, is a fan, then I it's not an impressive start. It's a very aggressive start, and maybe he doesn't. I'm sure he doesn't care what I think or what you think. You know, as far as he's concerned, we're talking about him, and that's because he took matters into his own hands at Curtain Call. So, okay, but I don't think it bodes well for the rest of the roster if that's the way that he and Blake are gonna conduct themselves going forward. Yeah. I think he's got an interesting opponent here. I think Kyle Kingsley is. I don't know too much about Kyle, but I do know that he's a fitness fanatic. That he's again, much like Brady Phillips, in excellent shape. He's a product of the House of Pain Wrestling Academy in Nottingham, which means he's been trained by the likes of Joseph Connors. He's been trained by Styx, who's one of the best heavyweights that this country has produced in the last 20 years. So he's got a good foundation there. There's Kyle Kingsley. I just don't know, with someone who is as determined as Will Cruz is to sort of wreak a path of destruction through Wrestle Carnival, if that's going to be, I don't know how you stop that. Even if you're someone with the skills of Kyle Kingsley, I think it's a big ask.
Yeah, absolutely. Really looking forward to this one. I think you're going to get two very talented big guys go at it on a path of destruction. Yeah, looking forward to this one most definitely. Let's talk about this next tag match then, Dave. Alexis Falcon and Lizzie Evo versus Session Moth and Heidi Katrina. Obviously, there was issues at Curtain Call when Session Moth got beaten down by Giselle Shaw and replaced by Heidi Katrina in the match against Giselle Shaw at Curtain Call. Lizzie Evo came out towards the end of that match as well. So obviously some revenge here, certainly for Session Moth and possibly Heidi Katrina. Adding into the mix, one of those talented wrestlers in the UK at the moment, Alexis Falcon. Yeah, this was going to be great. Some interesting dynamics and 4 excellent UK wrestlers.
Yeah, Lizzie certainly knows how to set the cat among the pigeons, doesn't she? I mean, she first of all, she has that title defense, and she, which was impressive ultimately, to win that 4-way match, retain the Catch Pro Wrestling Championship, but then to also then intervene in Giselle Shaw's match against Heidi Katrina at Curtain Call was I didn't really understand what her game plan is there. I mean, it's not like Lizzie needs allies, right? Lizzie Evo is dominating large parts of the women's scene in British wrestling anyway. But I guess it speaks to her ambition that she's like, no, I'm going to make alliances. And she's obviously, at Curtain Call, picked Giselle Shaw as someone who can help her get to that next level and make those 3 championships into 4, 5, or 6. And I think she's picked another excellent partner in Alexis Falcon. So that is a formidable team.
It really is.
A really formidable team. Heidi Katrina, again, having stepped in late into that match that would have been Giselle Shaw and Session Moth in a 2 out of 3 falls. I thought Heidi was looking really, really good until Lizzie intervened. And you have to go through then the sort of, if you're Heidi Katrina, you're going through that kind of disgrace of going 2-0 down in a 2 out of 3 falls match, not through any fault of her own, not through lack of ability. I think she was possibly on course to equalize and maybe win the match until Lizzie came in. So Heidi's going to be absolutely fuming still, however many weeks later it is at Lizzie. I don't think there'll be any bad. I know you said it's an interesting dynamic. I don't think there'll be any bad blood between Session Moth and Heidi. I can't imagine that.
It shouldn't be. No.
I can't imagine Martina's going to hold it against Heidi that she took her place, because it was because of a pre-match attack by Giselle Shaw that Martina wasn't able to compete Session Moth. So I think they'll be fine. And I think, if anything, their challenge is going to, or at least Heidi's challenge, is going to have to be to channel her anger, because she's going to be absolutely gunning for Lizzie, and she's going to, which is good, but Lizzie knows that, and Lizzie Evo's smart, right? She's not stupid. She knows that Heidi Katrina is coming in there furious at her, so her strategy, I'm sure, will be to try and make Heidi make a mistake and then capitalize on that as best she can. So yeah, Heidi's got to sort of, her battle is half against herself, if you like. She needs to keep that rage, because that'll be helpful, but she needs to channel it rather than do anything rash.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see what happens during this match, most definitely. But I think that both Heidi and Session Moth, they have their maybe long-term plans set on something with Giselle Shaw, because I think there's some unfinished business there. But this tag match for sure will be one to watch. And like I say, you've got so many awesome talents in that one match. Speaking of awesome talents, let's talk about Leighton Buzzard versus Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry, of course, has got Ring of Honor connections, having performed for Ring of Honor many, many times before. And this match will be aired on Ring of Honor week by week. Leighton Buzzard, I think is he a trainee of Joe Hendry? So it is kind of like the master versus the apprentice in this match. But once again, two excellent talents. I don't know too much about Leighton Buzzard. Joe Hendry I've seen a few times. What can you tell me about these two?
Well, Joe I know very well, and Joe is maybe it's in some ways it's a lazy comparison, because obviously they're both amateur wrestlers, but and they competed against each other famously. But I do see Joe Hendry as with some real similarities to Kurt Angle in terms of his work ethic. Right, Kurt Angle, amateur wrestling background, gold medalist. Joe Hendry went to the Commonwealth Games to represent Scotland in amateur wrestling. And both just seem very much, and we saw when they wrestled against each other that Angle had this was back in 2016 in a company I worked for called WCPW back in those days, that they competed. And we saw then that Angle had a lot of respect for Joe, and that's because I think he saw something of himself in him. Joe Hendry is one of the hardest working individuals, one of the most driven, motivated people in British wrestling. And I felt like there was a very interesting tweet from him just a week or so ago. I don't have it right in front of me, so I'll paraphrase it. But it was essentially along the lines of that he's sick and tired of not being at the top of this industry, and that's going to change beginning on September 12th in Nottingham.
Wow.
And so
he has
something planned. I don't know what it's going to be, but Joe Hendry is a showman and Joe Hendry is a competitor. So this seems to be Joe Hendry seeing this as his new chapter, post-pandemic. He's been very frustrated, I know, because as you say, he has been competing for Ring of Honor or had been, and that's been frustrated through the pandemic. So I think he feels that circumstances have put the brakes onto what would have been otherwise, in his mind, an inevitable rise for him to the top of the industry. And so he's going to take circumstances into his own hands here and try and do something. He's going to be against an opponent he knows well, Leighton Buzzard, as you say. He's helped train him. Leighton Buzzard is someone I've never commentated on, but James R. Kennedy, my esteemed commentary partner, assures me from the many times he's worked with him in Scotland that Buzzard's the real deal.
Yeah.
Sometimes Kennedy says nice things about someone if he wants to borrow money from them. So we can sort of take that slightly for what it's worth. But no, seriously, I think he's definitely one of those up and comers. I just wonder if Joe Hendry's in the mood that he seems to be in, then it's a big challenge for Leighton Buzzard, but it'll be one, he'll relish it. I get the impression he's a youngster who doesn't have any fear, doesn't have any doubt in his own ability. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and following up on Joe Hendry's tweet that you paraphrased earlier, it'd be interesting to see not only how this match goes, but what plans Joe Hendry has up his sleeve. So that'll be quite interesting to see what unfolds there. Let's talk about Kasey Owens versus Giselle Shaw then, because we mentioned Giselle earlier, involved in her match back at Curtain Call. And of course beating down Session Moth, which meant that she couldn't compete. But here against Kasey Owens, one of the best female workers on the UK scene. And this is going to be a kind of a bit of a masterclass, really, when you talk about wrestling in the UK. Two of the best, Giselle, like I say, not just in the UK, but one of the best in the world. And Kasey Owens, I think that she's looking for that match to really kind of stamp her mark on the scene, and this could be it.
Yeah, I mean, Kasey's another one who has had a lot of success up in ICW. I know she's a multiple-time champion up there. She's obviously her twin sisters in the industry as well. They've tagged together. I think they were part of WRS Wrestling on ITV even. So they've been places. And yeah, she's the kind of high caliber opponent that we need to be finding for Giselle Shaw, because yes, granted, as we've already discussed, the circumstances of that 2-0 win against Heidi Katrina in a 2 out of 3 falls match were dubious. But there's no doubt that Giselle Shaw, prior to Lizzie Evo's interference, was showing just how terrifying she is as a prospect. I mean, she is being talked about as someone who is on her way to the absolute top of women's wrestling, and you saw why in just a few minutes. And it wasn't just her ability, it wasn't just her physical ability, it was her attitude.
Yeah.
Again, maybe somewhat unpleasant, and I certainly don't condone how she took Session Moth out of action before the match, but she has this unwavering, not even belief, like a certainty that no, I am the absolute best in this industry. Nobody can touch me. And it's a certainty built on actual evidence, because wherever she's been going, and she's been one of the wrestlers who's been fortunate enough that she has been able to compete a bit more than some others during the pandemic, because some of the places she works have been able to keep going, mostly in empty arena shows. But she's been keeping her skills sharp and looks, I think, up there with Lizzie as just about the scariest force going in the women's division, not just in our women's division, but in women's wrestling
pretty much anywhere,
in all of Britain. So which is why I found it kind of super scary to see those two standing together at Curtain Call. Lizzie Evo and Giselle Shaw, two massive egos. I don't know how long they can coexist, but if they can, my goodness, they could dominate. And that's true of this match as well. Kasey Owens, I haven't seen wrestle for quite a while, so I can't comment on how she's been during the pandemic or whatever. She is certainly, as you say, based on resume, based on where she's been, what she's done, she is the only sort of kind of caliber of competitor that we could put up there against Giselle Shaw and reasonably expect them to have a chance. But that doesn't mean it's a big chance, because Giselle Shaw is looking mighty, mighty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is another match that you don't want to take your eye off for one moment, because, as I said at the top of this review, this is going to be a masterclass of pro wrestling. And, of course, Giselle Shaw, current Progress Women's Champion, Rev Pro Women's Champion, much like Lizzie Evo, carrying so many championships at the moment. But Kasey Owens is going to give her a run for her money for sure. I have no doubt about that on Sunday the 12th. Speaking of quality matches, let's talk about this one, the submissions match between Chris Ridgeway and Carlos Romo. We saw Chris back at Curtain Call against Jay Joshua in an excellent, very, very hard-hitting submissions match. And that was pretty good. Carlos Romo, a different type of athlete, slightly more fast-paced, I would say, compared to Jay Joshua. But this one is going to be equally fierce, equally hard-hitting, and another match that, could take all the plaudits at the end of the day.
Yeah, it could do. And as we know, or as we saw in most of us said beforehand, but he certainly proved it on the day, Chris Ridgeway is one of the best submission wrestlers in the world. I was very impressed, by the way, with Jay Joshua. I thought he put up a hell of a fight against Chris Ridgeway, because I didn't know that much about Jay prior to that match. But ultimately, Ridgeway did come through and get it done. And now, yeah, like you say, a different kind of opponent, different sort of wrestling style, different body shape and type in Carlos Romo. For those who don't know Carlos Romo, he's one of the top stars to come out of Spain in recent years. He's a long-time tag team partner of A-Kid, who, as we know, has been doing incredible things over in NXT UK. They're both from a promotion called White Wolf Wrestling in Madrid, where they've been really sort of kind of transforming the Spanish scene. And Carlos is a friend of mine, and I know he's been just absolutely, like so many wrestlers, desperate to get back into the ring during the course of the pandemic, and it's great to see him back. I had the chance to commentate on a match of his. He's been competing in Europe, in mainland Europe, over the past month or two. So I've seen him competing once in the past couple of months, which is the first time I've seen him post-pandemic, and he looked great. Looked like he hadn't missed a step. I think the match type, if I'm honest, probably is still more Ridgeway's than Romo's.
I would say the same. Yeah,
I don't think Carlos Romo is a submission specialist. He's more of a. It's hard to describe Carlos. A high flyer almost doesn't do him credit either, because he is an all-round.
He's very versatile, isn't he? But he's not one thing or another. He's a bit of an all-rounder.
Yeah, and if it was just if it was a singles match with no added stipulation, I would think that he could absolutely even be the favorite possibly against Ridgeway, which sounds a strange thing to say, but Romo is that good. I wonder whether the submission stipulation maybe slightly tips the balance towards Ridgeway. But when I say tips the balance, I mean, if I was like putting a percentage chance on who I think is going to win this, it would be Ridgeway, but it would be 51-49. It's on a knife edge, this.
No, it's going to be a very, very interesting battle. And like I say, having that extra element of the submission rules maybe slightly favours Ridgeway, but I think Romo going into the unknown, and maybe Chris Ridgeway going into the unknown with Romo, and he could pull out some tricks out of the bag that could surprise Ridgeway, and it's definitely leading for a fantastic match, no doubt. Let's talk about the next match, and it's going to be for the Heart of Shimmer Championship. The first time this championship has been defended outside of Japan, is my understanding, against Hyan, the champion, and Alex Windsor. So I mean, what I found interesting about this is you've got Hyan, who is a three-time former Reality of Wrestling Women's Champion. That's of course Booker T's promotion and training school over in the States. Against Alex Windsor, who's had her kind of injury issues, but she's back to full health, back to full fitness, and with a lot to prove against Hyan. So this is going to be a very, very interesting match. What do you know about these two, and what can you tell us about it? What's your insight?
Well, I think first of all, I think this speaks to just how strong Wrestle Carnival's commitment to women's wrestling is, because we have out of 8 matches on this card, 3 of them are women's matches, and they're all world-class matches. You know, it's really quite remarkable, the women's roster that's being put together here, and to have another guest championship in. You know, I know we had the Catch Pro Wrestling Championship defended by Lizzie Evo at Curtain Call. So now the Heart of Shimmer Championship. You know, for those who don't know, Shimmer is one of the world's absolute premier women's promotions. Hyan, obviously the champion there at the moment, so it's a great honor for us to welcome her to Nottingham to defend her title on Sunday. Alex Windsor is a really interesting choice of opponent. I think she's a fighter. Is Alex Windsor? I know her a little bit from her early days. She trained in I don't know if she trained, but she certainly competed in WAW in Norwich, which is, as we know, the promotion of Paige's family. Yeah, very famously in the sort of the top promotion in East Anglia, and has been for a number of decades. So she's another one who comes from a very very good background in terms of who's trained her. And you know, if you're gonna try and take one of these sort of prestigious international titles away from someone like Hyan, then this is probably the best kind of situation in terms of, you know, being preferable, being favorable towards the challenger, because it's kind of a home match, right? To use like football terminology. You know, you've got Hyan having to kind of travel across the world to compete here. Alex Windsor is going to have this opportunity to really kind of, I don't know. I mean, I don't know who the crowd will support, but she's going to feel like, no, I can do this here in a way that if she traveled to Shimmer, for example, and had to compete for Shimmer, then I don't know whether that would be more of an intimidating. So it certainly would be for me if I was in that scenario. So I do wonder whether this might be fertile ground for a title change. But again, you know, it's easier to say than to do, because obviously the champion always has the advantage in these matches. As we know, it's a cliche, but title can only change hands, pinfall or submission. So the onus is on the challenger. But I think Alex Windsor's got a chance here, definitely.
Yeah, most definitely. And Hyan riding on a bit of a crest of a wave over the last 12 months. Not only did she win the Heart of Shimmer Championship, but she's appeared on AEW Dark and Ring of Honor TV. But this is going to be a great match, and interesting to see how these two gel and perform in the ring. But another one of those matches you're just not going to be able to take your eyes off. But let's talk about our main event then, Dave. And this is an ROH Pure Rules Match. Doug Williams versus Dean Allmark. I've interviewed Dean Allmark before. You've probably seen both of these two in action many times. And of course, Doug coming out of retirement earlier on this year, and almost as if he hasn't kind of missed a beat. And Dean Allmark, one of the best technical wrestlers, not just in the UK, but pretty much anywhere for my money, in a pure rules match. So first of all, fill our kind of viewers in on what the rules consist of. We did have to kind of just briefly remind ourselves of the pure rules before we hit record. But tell us about the rules and your thoughts on the competitors in this match.
I mean, I think it's fantasy booking stuff. This, if you're a British wrestling fan,
dream matches
have been over the last 2 decades, then Doug Williams and Dean Allmark is pretty much as good as it gets in terms of veterans of the UK scene who are still active. Pure rules, to answer your question, is the main thing it's going to mean here. There's some other things if it's a title match, but essentially you're only allowed 3 rope breaks each, right? And so after you've exhausted your rope breaks, if you then are in, say, a submission hold and you go and grab the rope, referee's not going to force the break and you can still tap out. So for a lot of submission holds, particularly with people like Doug Williams and Dean Allmark, who know thousands of submissions, then a lot of times, rather than reverse or counter or power your way out of a move, the easiest way out often is to try and edge your body towards the rope so that one of your limbs can get to the rope and force the rope break. Well, that's only going to work 3 times for you here.
Yeah.
For example, it's something that that Chris Ridgeway and Jay Joshua relied on quite a bit because of how talented both of those guys are at submission holds. And there weren't limits on the rope breaks in that match at Curtain Call, but in this match with Williams and Allmark, there will be. So that's another thing to think about, and if you're and it becomes tactical as well, because if you're Doug Williams early in the match and Dean Allmark's got you caught in a half crab or something, right? Do you do the easy thing, which would be, I'm within reach of the rope, so I'm going to grab the rope and get the rope break, but then you've lost one of your 3 opportunities to do that? Or do you say, no, I'm going to save that rope break for later on, and I'm going to try, even though it's going to mean exerting more energy, I'm going to try and find a different way out of this so that I can keep that rope break for later on when I really need it. So that, I think, really adds something to the thinking that's going to have to go into this match on the part of both men. For those who don't know them, I mean, Doug Williams is just he's known as the ambassador of British wrestling, and that's a very good title because he has competed absolutely everywhere. He was in TNA or Impact for a long time. He's been to Japan. He's been all over the world.
Let's not forget a former Ring of Honor Pure Rules champion as well.
Yeah, of course he is. Yeah, Ring of Honor as well. So he has had titles absolutely everywhere. Dean Allmark, I think, is probably, no disrespect to Dean, he's probably less well known than Doug to a lot of people because Doug's been on Ring of Honor and TNA and places like that more. But Dean's been everywhere as well. But the main thing I think people need to realize about Dean Allmark is that he is a mainstay of all-star wrestling. Now, people who don't know what all-star wrestling is and has been over the past 30 years, or however long it's been going.
50, yeah.
50 now. Yeah. It's the sort of, it has been the main provider. There's others now, of course, but it has been the main provider of summer camp wrestling shows throughout the UK. And what that means is that because there's a very healthy summer camp wrestling industry in this country, that Dean Allmark has competed often like more than once a day, throughout his career in front of large audiences. So he probably has more ring time under his belt than anyone in Britain, including Doug. I don't know that for sure, but it wouldn't surprise me because Dean Allmark has competed against everyone, everywhere, multiple times. And it's because of that consistency, it's because of that hard work, that drive, that he has become one of the most formidable talents that British wrestling's ever produced. And
one of the most innovative wrestlers Britain's ever produced as well. He comes up with new holds, new ways to hurt his opponent pretty much on a daily basis. He's coming up with new holds for anybody that follows Dean on social media. Yeah,
and he will be, I know Doug very well. I know Dean a little bit, but I know Doug very well. Dean Allmark will be one of the few guys who Doug Williams will be thinking, oh man, having been away this long, can I hang with Dean Allmark? Yeah. Because I don't think there's many people in British wrestling, even having been away for a year and a half, 2 years, however long it is since Doug retired, probably must be 2 years since Doug retired, I know he's had a handful of matches back now since he decided to come back in other promotions. But he's going to be thinking, okay, this will be the ultimate test of whether I've still got what I used to have, whether there's any ring rust there, whether I can still compete at the level I was doing before I retired. Because if he can find a way to defeat Dean Allmark, then Doug Williams will have proven in Nottingham on Sunday that he's still at the very top of the British wrestling mountain.
Yeah. I mean, we've spoken about 7 matches previously that could main event pretty much any card up and down the country. But when you talk about Doug Williams and Dean Allmark, that's the main event of all main events, isn't it, really? That's the cream of the crop. And we're going to be very, very lucky to witness that on Sunday at the Portland Centre in Nottingham. But that's going to be an incredible match. Can't wait to see it. Can't wait to see all of them live in the flesh. Before we go, Dave, just your quick overall thoughts. We've discussed 8 what's going to be fantastic matches, a very, very stacked card, a brilliant lineup for Wrestle Carnival's second show, Carnival of Honor. Now that we've discussed those 8 matches, kind of where's your head's at, and what are your kind of closing thoughts on the show we're about to see on Sunday?
Well, as I said, I think it's an incredible way to build on what we started at Curtain Call. I think this one has the potential, and it's going to be hard because Curtain Call was great, but it has the potential to one up even Curtain Call, and that's what a new wrestling promotion needs to do, right? You can't just have a brilliant first show and then kind of rest on your laurels. And it's very, very clear that Wrestle Carnival is not resting on its laurels based on this card of action. So I think it could be one of the best British wrestling cards, certainly of this year. And given that there hasn't been many for a couple of years, it's going to be one of the best we've had in a long time. And I think other wrestling promotions, not just in Britain, but across the independent wrestling world, will be looking at what Wrestle Carnival has put together here. And there'll be eyes popping out of skulls looking at this card. It's that good.
Absolutely. A fantastically stacked 8-match card for Wrestle Carnival's second show, Carnival of Honor. Dave, it's been brilliant previewing this card with you, and can't wait to see you at the show. And take care, my friend. But for everybody watching, we'll see you there. Enjoy the show. Wrestle Carnival Curtain Call, September the 12th in Nottingham, Portland Centre. Take care. We'll see you there.